back, Ram fans. This is Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are proud members of the Fans First Sports Network. That's fansfirstsports.com. You can also follow us on YouTube. Our channel is at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. You'll hear from my co-host, Tom, on occasion as well. Hey, we're not Rams insiders. We're just longtime fans who love talking about our Los Angeles Rams. Let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody. Episode 352 of Rams Up. Got a special treat for you coming up the next two episodes, actually. Had a long conversation with Scott Richmond, longtime Ram fan, very knowledgeable, especially when it comes to draft prospects. I'm going to share the first half of my discussion with him this episode and the second half, our next episode. Really fun stuff. Check it out. The Sunday playoff games, the 49ers escaped over the Packers. Packers really had that, could not seal the deal. Not sure the 49ers have what it takes to win the Super Bowl, and that's all I really care about at this point. Ravens looked really good. Beat the Texans, hammered the Texans in the second half. I think the Ravens are going to be heavy favorites. Well, maybe not heavy favorites, but they'll be favored regardless of who they play. Assuming they get to the Super Bowl, feel pretty strongly that they will. We'll get into all the playoff games when we do our next loop around the league Monday or Tuesday. Hey, it's episode 352, so I'm going to kick this off talking about a Ram who wore number 52. One of my all-time favorite Rams, number 52, Alec Ogletree. Big athletic linebacker out of Georgia. The Rams picked him with the 30th pick in the first round of the 2013 draft. And I was thinking, how did we end up with the 30th pick in 2013? I went back and looked. Well, we traded with Atlanta. We had a few trades in that draft. Early on, we traded up to get Tavon Austin. Somehow ended up with the 30th pick as well, and picked up Alec Ogletree. Played 5 years with the Rams, 67 games, started every single one of them. One of those sideline-to-sideline linebackers that just brought it every play. Finished his Ram career with 6 interceptions, only 5.5 sacks though. And you know what I remember about Alec Ogletree is not just the athleticism, but the personality. He had that big fight with OBJ on the sideline with the Giants. But what I really remember him for is in Irvine at training camp, he took the time to come over and talk to me and my son, and he was so gregarious, so friendly, the friendliest Ram on that roster. And then my son went to the Coliseum to see the Rams play the Saints, and who comes over to the railing to talk to my son and his buddies? You got it, Alec Ogletree. What a great guy. I wish more players were like Alec Ogletree, to be honest with you, when it comes to interactions with fans. Went on to play with the Giants, Jets, and Bears. Hey everybody, I am here with Scott Richmond. We'll be making the rounds with different Rams fans over the next couple months, and we've had Scott on a couple other times before the season started. How you been, Scott?
Well, I've been doing great, Mark.
Yeah, we have Scott on prior to the draft last year. He has a lot of insight into draft prospects, and we'll bring you back right before the draft, talk a little bit more about that. We can talk a little bit about the draft today, actually, although it's a little bit early. I suspect you feel the same way about this season as a lot of other Ram fans. So how do you feel about the Rams 2023 season?
Oh, very positive, very kind of fulfilling in a way. I think we had a discussion last year, and I was like, oh, even at the best, I think they might get to 7 wins, maybe 8, if things went well. And for them to get to 10 and have a winning record and make the playoffs was just wow.
In some ways, it was kind of a magical season. A lot of things went their way. Early in the year, a couple of things went against them, but, they win the overtime game in Indianapolis. They lose Stafford for a couple of games, and it looks pretty dark there. And then they go on this nice run, winning some close games. And I was pumped about it. I was more optimistic about their chances of making the playoffs this year than most, but that's just my nature. I'm always predicting the high end of productivity for my Rams. But yeah, you were predicting, you thought a playoff spot was a long shot. How did you feel about the job Raheem Morris did? I think that was one of the great takeaways from this season.
Yeah, I thought he did great. I was one that, from when he took over 3 years ago, I was kind of indifferent. I didn't know a lot about him. I wasn't pro Raheem. I wasn't against Raheem. On social media, I found myself wanting to defend him. People were always calling him out. I'm sorry, this soft defense. I hate this. I hate that. He needs to be fired. And it's like I just felt the need to say, no, that's just wrong. Why are you saying this? You should be judging how many points they're giving up per game, and he's better than half the other teams in the league.
Yeah.
Statistically, so I just don't get it. I didn't get the hate, is what I didn't get.
Yeah, and I think social media is really good at bringing out that aspect in a lot of people on a lot of topics. Unfortunately, that's just the
Yes.
nature of the beast. The other thing that I thought was a real big, boost for this team was the changes they made in the running game. And I don't know who gets the credit for that. I don't think it's just Kyron Williams. I think it's the change and Sean McVay's willingness, I think, to change it up a little bit and attack things differently.
Yeah, I think Mike LaFleur was a big influence in that, and I thought he was a great. Um, doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think he is a big cog in the machine that really turned the offense around. Um, Kind of going away from the wide zone running. They beefed up the interior of the line. They started doing more duo blocking where they would double team the defensive tackles. They would bring the tight ends and receivers in through a gap and act as lead blockers like a fullback. And boy, that really, there was a time there where the running backs, they were getting 5 yards downfield before contact. It was amazing.
Kind of jumping ahead here, but hopefully they're able to retain Kevin Dotson and maybe even improve this offensive line next year because it's so promising. And I think I think I feel a lot like probably Sean McVay feels, rejuvenated, and just can't wait for next year to begin. Although there's a lot of holes to fill, a lot of challenges in free agency and such, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, I think we
Sure.
feel the same way about this season. It was just a lot of fun, wasn't it? Just watching this
Yeah.
team down the stretch, Puka Nakua and Demarcus Robinson, Kyron Williams, all these Byron Young and Kobe Turner, a lot of really promising players stepping up for the Rams.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Watching Puka be able to step in for Cooper. I mean, just from the start of the season was just it was amazing how he was already prepared um, to take on the responsibility of as much of the offensive load. All the targets that he took and all the blocking that he did was phenomenal.
Yeah, and the culture of the Rams, it's just awesome to watch these wide receivers, Cooper Cup, and there are probably other teams where if that scenario unfolded, where Puka is getting 14 targets and Cooper is getting five, you probably see Cooper Cup in Matthew Stafford's ear. Uh, you see that with teams like Seattle and Dallas and a little bit with the 49ers. You just never see that stuff with the Rams, and that's a credit to Sean McVay and his staff finding the right people and developing such a great culture there. Hey, so how do you
Mhm.
feel about the Lions game?
I came away a little salty. I felt that the referees missed a lot of calls that really stalled our drives. One of the first ones was Puka Nakua taking a pass down the right sideline in the red zone and going down head first. The defender came in and targeted his helmet. And if you remember, Puka, it knocked him out. It didn't knock him out consciously, but he was on the ground and he couldn't get up for a minute or so. He had to come out of the game and he had to re-enter the game. And I was surprised there was no penalty for roughing and or targeting or whatever. And then the hit by Stafford where he got legally hit by Hutchinson from the side, and then the defensive tackle came in a fraction of a second later and laid a shoulder into his helmet and knocked him into the ground, and his head bounced off the ground. And Was very surprised there was no roughing call there. That should have been a penalty, and that's probably a drive where they probably end up with 6 points on that drive.
Everybody wants to focus on the three red zone drives that resulted in 9 points, and that was certainly an issue. But they did they did have two long touchdowns. They were able to score from outside the 35 pretty well. And there are some plays down the stretch there. If things went a little bit differently, it would have been really interesting if the Rams had been able to kick a late field goal there and go up by 2 and give the ball back to Jared Goff with a couple minutes left. I think we were deprived of that. And maybe Aaron Donald steps up and makes another game-ending tackle like he did against the 49ers and he did against the Bengals. So that's what I was upset about. Not so much, I felt like we were playing with house money to some degree, and I didn't want to get too upset about how things ended. I'm not sure this team had what it takes to win a Super Bowl anyways.
Right.
We probably would have lost Kyron Williams, and we definitely lost Tyler Higbee moving forward. So, I tried to walk away with that with a smile on my face, but then you're just thinking what could have been, what could have been if we had been able to get out of there with a win and head to Tampa Bay. Oh man, it would have been awesome.
Yes, it was. I'm over the game, but I just hope that the Lions don't lose and have questionable calls, because they won't be getting any sympathy from me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's interesting. I felt like over the past couple of years since the trade, there had been a little bit of a unofficial alliance between Lions and Rams fans, kind of pulling for each other. And that may have evaporated. That may not be the case anymore moving forward.
Yes.
And we'll find out when we head to Detroit next year for the regular season game.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. I'll go through some questions here. And so everyone knows Scott is being blindsided by these questions. He doesn't know what's coming, but so cut you some slack if you have to hem and haw on these. So I identified 4 free agents that the Rams have that they probably need to do everything they can to retain, and there's probably more. But would you like to see the Rams retain Carson Wentz?
Yes, for the right price, I think. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be worth a 5 or 6 million per season. If they can keep him for 2 to 3 million, I think that would be worth it.
Do you think he's done enough for another team to bring him in and compete for a starting job? I'm not sure he did. It was just one game, right?
Oh, I agree. I think at this point in career, I think he's just a backup. I don't think physically he's going to be able to hold up for a 17-game season. I don't think so.
And he seems like the perfect backup, a guy he's got experience. He can win at the NFL level. He's just been prone to bonehead plays over the course of his career, I think. Turnovers, and he can run with the ball. And I think it's always great to have a backup quarterback that changes things up a little bit, right, from your normal offense. So I think he'd be a great guy to bring back, not knowing what's going on with Stetson Bennett. And I don't think we can count on him, even if he does come back at this point, being a reliable backup. Well, to me, the most important guy to bring back of all these free agents is Kevin Dotson. The question is, what is the price tag going to look like? Because he could be a pretty popular player on the market.
Yeah, I think I was looking at his valuation from Over the Cap earlier in the week, and I think they have him at about 7 to 8 million per season is what he was evaluated for this past season. So I think he should be easily retained at an average salary per year of about 6 million. They should be able to give him a bonus.
So is that valuation based on this year, though?
It was based on this year, yeah. It says 2023 valuation. In fact, I might...
it could be significantly higher in 2024, though, no?
No, their valuations are usually pretty high. And get a refresher here on what that...
That was quite a trade Snead pulled off. I remember reading Steeler fans were... jumping with joy that the Steelers had been able to unload him, and that gave me cause for concern. But it
Mm-hmm.
turned out pretty good.
Let's see. Contract value was 2.25 million average per year. His hit for the Rams this year was that same number, 2.25. 2023 valuation is 6.3 million. So that's about what he should be valued at going into this next season.
I think that would be, I'd be willing to spend that on him, I think. Of
I would
course,
agree.
yeah. Now, I think the offensive line, if you can retain Dotson, now we had a discussion on a roundtable. I don't know if you saw it, and we came to the conclusion. I think there was a consensus that, assuming you can retain Dotson, we still may want to improve the left tackle position if possible. Lyric's okay, but um, we can discuss that another day. Did you want to chime in on Lyric Jackson? Did you have an opinion on him?
Yes, I do. I think this year, I probably have a differing opinion than most, but I think the job they did with Alaric Jackson was smoke and mirrors. After seeing in person what he did in training camp, boy, he was getting run around like a turnstile the day that I was at training camp. I was very concerned. Um, and for him to perform this year, I thought the game planning to keep speed rushers off of him was phenomenal for him to for as little a number of hits that Stafford took from his blind side. It was pretty amazing considering how slow Alaric's feet are.
So you think that was more due to scheme than Lyric Jackson's skill level?
I think so. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
reason he was not drafted.
Yeah.
He
Okay,
has
fair
slow
enough.
feet. Yeah. So
Yeah, and when we get to the draft, well, we'll talk about the draft in a second. So we'll maybe bounce back to that topic of the offensive
sure.
line. The other guy that I think the cornerback and secondary and as in general is an area of concern with the free agents we have.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it'd be really nice to bring back a Killer Witherspoon, but only because I think we need to draft another cornerback or sign another cornerback. If we lose Witherspoon in the meantime, it's just I don't know if we're really improving the unit. So in my mind, we
Mm-hmm.
need to keep Witherspoon and add a high level cornerback. Are you in agreement there? I mean, I just don't. I guess what I'm trying to say is I wouldn't feel good about Durant or Darion Kendrick being a
Mm-hmm.
full time starting cornerback moving forward. Although they did okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's just an area we need to improve. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. I think Witherspoon, I'm borderline on him. I think I would like to retain him for the right price. And this could possibly be another discussion. If Raheem Morris gets hired elsewhere, will the incoming defensive coordinator use a scheme where is Akello going to be a benefit or a detriment to that scheme? I don't know. I don't know yet. So
Yeah.
um, I'd like to keep him, but if they're going to continue to pay off coverage where he can play 6 to 8 yards off the receiver and then play him downfield, I think he's okay. I think he has enough speed to stay on intermediate and deep routes. But I think there was a play. I don't know if you remember, they had the Rams Lions. They had St. Brown out on the right side of the offensive formation,
I think I
and
know what play you're talking about. Yeah.
Witherspoon came up right up to the line as if he was going to play press coverage. And St. Brown just left him flat-footed. He was by him. All he did was
Yeah.
fake left, went right, and he was 10 yards upfield before Witherspoon even knew was going on. So they're going to change to press coverage. I don't know if he's going to be a benefit to that scheme. I'd like him for at least depth. So I think there was a dollar amount that I had. I think $2.5 million per season. I think that would be affordable to keep him. If the market says he's worth more than that, I would have to say I think they can get other free agents and draft players and
Yeah. I think the bottom line is we need a number one cornerback, and it probably wouldn't be Witherspoon. I think we're in agreement on that. If Witherspoon's
yeah.
retained, he's retained for as the second cornerback, a depth guy, that type of thing.
I could add on just to that subject. There's a player that I really like who's a free agent this year, who I mocked to the Rams when he came out of that small Louisiana school is L'Jarius Sneed from the
Oh,
Chiefs.
okay.
I think he would be great for the
I
Rams.
think he was mentioned by Ian or Paul in our roundtable, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I'll make note of that name. Sneed, he's with the Chiefs, did you say?
With the Chiefs, yeah, L'Jarius.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's an unrestricted free agent?
Yeah, he's unrestricted. I think he's his valuation, he's going to be a high dollar figure. He's going to be about 12 million a season. I think he would be one of two higher splash signings that the Rams could afford. Let's say if we, for example, if we thought an edge player like a Brian Burns from Carolina, right. I think if they were to sign him and L'Jarius Sneed, those would take up just about most of your cap space, and the rest of your signings are going to have to be
right.
smaller,
two splash signings. Right. Yeah, and I think the safety position, I didn't really include that here because the Rams have been so good at drafting safeties in the later rounds. But they are going to need a couple people now if they can keep Jordan Fuller and or John Johnson. They still have Russ Yeast, I think, who is serviceable. Quentin Lake, who's kind of a Swiss Army knife back there. But they'll figure that out, I think. It's not a position they're going to spend a lot of money on. Now, wide receiver really concerns me because of the, we talked about it at length on the last roundtable, or the first half of our last roundtable. What do we have in Cooper Kupp moving forward? Demarcus Robinson's a free agent. And that concerns me if Cooper Kupp's, he's injury prone. I'm not sure he certainly wasn't 100% at the end of the year, I don't think. But Demarcus Robinson really started to produce. If they could bring back Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell will probably be there still. I feel like they need to bring back Demarcus because of that. And they still may need to draft a wide receiver, right?
I think so. I think signing Demarcus is a priority, so that we have Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Demarcus Robinson as the main three in the 11 personnel. Keeping Atwell as the fourth or fifth receiver, I think, is great, and I think they do need to draft a player to be there, ready to roll, to fill in a position if somebody goes.
Yeah, and if they continue to draft like they have the last 2 years, they'll find a decent receiver late. And I'll talk about the draft in a minute. Where do you spend how do you spend your draft capital in this upcoming draft? That's the first half of my conversation with Scott. We'll pick this up next episode, getting more into particular players in the draft and a little bit about the Rams coaching staff, specifically the defensive coordinator. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.